Hello, everyone, and happy Wednesday. I keep hearing from so many people that there is one thing that's staying very constant in this crazy world that we're living in right now. In a world where things are changing very quickly, we're open, we're closed. They're going to school, they're not going to school. We're sending them off to college. They're going to be doing college from their classrooms. I mean, every moment, businesses are opening, businesses are closing. But the one thing that is staying so constant right now, and that is stress. STRESS. These are for sure really stressful times. And we are definitely feeling it. I know I am feeling it. And I want to remind everyone that this feeling of stress is not a benign thing. Stress can actually be very dangerous. It can cause us bodily harm, literally harm the systems inside of our bodies. Stress can age us, of course. It can exacerbate any mental illness, and it can seriously denigrate the quality of our life. So, unless we want to go and live on the top of a mountaintop somewhere and be a hermit, we have to be able to adapt to the stress. And I don't believe that the stress is going to be leaving anytime soon. So it's those of us that can adapt and create tools and fill up our toolbox in ways to help us actually feel better, adapt to life in a more balanced, grounded, comfortable way. Those are the ones that are actually going to be able to succeed at this time. So, because so many people were talking about stress and the effects that it had on our body, we thought we would bring back my dear friend and actually a really good friend to our conversations with our people community, Dr. Susanne Bennett. So, let's welcome Susanne. And then, of course, we're going to do our 3 breaths to get us grounded and ready to really hear this important information. Welcome, Susanne.
Hey, Lavinia. Hello, everyone. So happy to be here and share this time with you and talk about what's truly have been affecting so many lives, millions and millions of us all around the world. And I really thank you, Lavinia, for asking me to participate in your conversation with your buddies. Just here to help and share how can we move through this so that it doesn't affect our lives in such a huge way, our family lives as well. So I'm ready to do the breathing.
All right, let's go. All right, everyone. You know what to do. We're going to do 4 breaths in. We're going to hold our breath for 5 counts, and then we're going to exhale a ha. So we're going to inhale love, joy, abundances, health. And we're going to hold our breath and really visceralize it. Visceralize all of that health and that light going into your body and healing our bodies. Hold that breath for 5, and then we're going to exhale, ha, any energy that isn't serving our highest good. Okay, feet on the ground, spine erect. Inhale for 4. Hold your breath for 5. Exhale, ha. Really let it go. Inhale. Hold your breath. Smile. Exhale, ha. Last one. Inhale, love, joy, health, abundances. Hold your breath and smile. Exhale, ha. All right. I am so excited. I know you're in Baja, you're in La
Oh, yeah.
Paz, Mexico. So thank you so much. I know you're also working from there. So always grateful for you to take time to share your wisdom with our community. So, Suzanne,
Yeah.
whenever we even Google stress, the first thing that pops up is cortisol.
Mm.
That's the word that we see. I don't really know if our community really understands what exactly cortisol is. So, why don't you tell us all the good parts of cortisol, like the good, the bad, and the ugly about
Hmm.
cortisol, so we can really understand cortisol and how stress and how it affects us.
So, to understand stress, you've got to really also understand that we're an animal, we're human, but we're also, for thousands of years, have had these instincts in our body that had to deal with the fight flight state, right? And now in modern times, in urban lifestyle, it's not like we're being chased after a lion. It's not like we're constantly in the state of like survival mode, but our cells and our nervous system still geared towards it. So cortisol is what you call the stress hormone. And it's literally a hormone that's produced by our adrenal glands. Now, our adrenal glands are, on the back above our kidneys. They're tiny little glands, and it is controlled by what's called the HPA axis. HPA, you might see that a lot, and that means hypothalamus, pituitary, which is in the brain. These are the master glands, and then it tells our adrenal glands what to do depending on our state. All right. So right now, you mentioned how in our world of turmoil, our world of fear of getting sick, people are losing jobs, all of that, we're in a state of fight flight. And when that happens, our cortisol level goes really sky high, and it's not regulated properly. Now, we need cortisol. Let me tell you, cortisol is good for us. You got to understand, when cortisol is outputted in our body, and when it comes out and it's excreted by our adrenal glands, it's done in a rhythm. Humans have a 24-hour rhythm, and it's regulated by the sunlight and then when it's dark. So when it's sunlight starts early morning, our cortisol shoots up. And we want that because we need to be up and at 'em, going and working, getting our kids ready. We need that energy, and that's what cortisol does. It helps us use energy. Now, why? Cortisol, when it spikes up in the morning, what it does is it improves your blood sugar level. So, you haven't been eating all night, you've been sleeping all day, night, you don't have any food, but cortisol puts the blood sugar into the bloodstream so that it spikes up and you can wake up feeling decent to be able to get your day going, jump into the shower and all that. So cortisol is very, very high in the morning, and that is important. That's a good thing. As we go throughout the day, it gets lower and lower and lower. And when it gets lower and lower and lower, that's normal. Just know that that's a normal part of the rhythm, your circadian, your biorhythm. And then when it goes into the evening, when we all should be relaxing, having a good meal, getting ready for bed, our cortisol should be at its lowest, right? And then, of course, when you're sleeping, that should really be at its lowest when it comes to, so it's like a line like so, okay? So high in the morning, low at night. Now, what happens is that when we're constantly burdened by stress, emotional, mental, psychological, physical, we've got to work 2 jobs, whatever it is. Sometimes you're always inside and there's a lot of light going on. You don't get that darkness. You end up having fluctuations and excess amount of cortisol. It could be. And when that happens, you end up turning off a lot of the blood flow. So when you've got cortisol excess, our blood vessels actually tighten up. It's the nature of cortisol. It tightens up. And so there's less blood flow. Why? Because we need that. When you're in that fight flight, you need all the energy for your brain and all the core areas to get the energy so you can either run or fight or do something, right? So then all the areas that it's not important. So what shuts down is our gut. we're not going to be digesting. We're in the fight flight state. We're not going to go to the bathroom to go urinate or to have a bowel movement. Our gut shuts down. That's part of the reason why when we are under stress, we could either have diarrhea or constipation. It's you know, you've heard of that where you have irritable bowel syndrome. That comes from stress.
Wow.
Because of the connection of the gut and the brain. Everything is connected. So the brain and the gut, there's the neuroendocrine system and the adrenal glands are very closely related. So cortisol is important because it helps us with our brain alertness, be able to fight and do our thing. And it even gets our blood sugar up so that we have energy. What's not good is when you have too much and you have chronic excess, too much. And then what's also not good is when you have not enough, because when you don't have enough, you end up literally feel like a weight, a huge amount of weight on your body. You can't even get out of bed. You've heard of that chronic fatigue feeling, and a lot of us feel that. You feel depression. When you got cortisol, you don't feel good at all. You get depressed. When you have too much cortisol, you have anxiety because you're just fight, flight. And by the way, when you have a lot of cortisol, you also at the same time output in your adrenal glands adrenaline. You've heard of adrenaline? And it's what gets us motivated and what gives us the power in our body. We can do all kinds of stuff with adrenaline. But if we have too much adrenaline, you have anxiety, right? And when you're really low in cortisol, because your adrenal glands do not have enough the substrate to make the cortisol, and I want to talk about that in a little while, then you're not going to make enough. And that's when you're low in energy. So you could either be too high or too low. Or you could have like humps. You have too much in the morning and then you're okay. And then all of a sudden at nighttime, you're like a night owl. You know, you're just like, oh, I got my second wind. And when you've got that, we've got to fix that very quickly because that will.
Well, you know, I remember having that when I first started seeing more of a functional medicine nutritionist in New York many years ago when we had Equinox, this amazing gentleman by the name of Oz Garcia. And he, prior to that, I went to your typical internist. And then with Oz, it was a different approach. And when I started with him, and again, this was in the middle of Equinox. I think Zach was maybe like 2 years old, plus doing Equinox, working. And my sleep was so off. You know, my sleep was crazy. And I was in my late 30s or mid 30s. And all he said to me was like, oh my gosh, Lavinia, your cortisol levels are so high. And that was, you know, a big part. I mean, that was honestly the first time I'd ever even heard about that, cortisol levels, you know, and understanding that. So take us a little bit through like what different symptoms people would have for them to say, oh, cortisol levels are off. Like what might that look like?
Absolutely. The number one symptom is usually, even if you're feeling like the cortisol is too high, you actually feel fatigue. Fatigue is a very common symptom. Anxiety, irritability, gut disorders, gut issues, depression, can't sleep very well. You've got broken down sleep. You gain weight. I mean, all of a sudden you gain weight. And the reason is because too much cortisol, remember I said it makes your sugar go up to give you more energy. But what happens is it shuts down your insulin ability for your insulin to work. That's the nature of cortisol. So you get what's called insulin insensitivity. People who have insulin sensitivity are actually diabetic. Yeah, diabetics have insulin sensitivity. And what is one of the main symptoms of diabetes or diabetic that's insulin sensitive? They gain weight. So weight gain is super common when you've got cortisol dysregulation. You get blood pressure issues. So if you all of a sudden, you've been really good, healthy, like 110, over 70, all the time, your blood pressure, and then you go to the doctor and you see all of a sudden it's 140 over 90, you're gonna like, something is wrong. What's making my blood pressure go up? I clearly would say you've got to go in and get your adrenals checked because that is a clear-cut symptom of higher levels of cortisol. Again, when you have too much cortisol, one of the things that I also want to talk about are hormones, because cortisol comes from cholesterol. People don't realize that cholesterol, which is a very, very important steroid hormone, it is something that we eat, and we also produce it in our body, but cholesterol makes cortisol. Can I show you something so you can see what I'm talking about? So I'm going to show you an image so that you can see. Now, what I want you to understand is can you see this here?
Well, you know what? We're also, for the community, we're going to put this on the website as well, but show us just so we can go through that.
Absolutely. So what I'm going to show you now, here we go. I'm going to show you now is that there's cortisol right there, right?
No, that's cholesterol.
That's cortisol.
Oh, it says cholesterol.
I'm sorry, cholesterol. I'm so sorry. That's cholesterol. And then you see cortisol, right?
Mm-hmm.
So cholesterol makes aldosterone, which is the hormone that helps you keep your urine in, or if you don't have enough, you're going to urinate too much. It also helps you with cortisol, but I want you to see something that helps you with all these very good hormones, which, sorry about that. The hormones such as testosterone, DHEA, estrogen, progesterone, these are all hormones that we all need as well. So if you are having high excess cortisol because you're overstressed, guess what? Your own body steals it away. The cortisol steals that cholesterol and all of these parent hormones. So what ends up happening is you end up getting high cortisol. You could probably see, I'm so sorry. There's I'm trying to get here. You get high cortisol here, right? Mm-hmm. And you're getting low levels of testosterone, DHEA, all of those yummy hormones that make you feel good, sleep better, have the libido, grow your muscles, and help you with your brain and nervous system. It is what you call a cortisol. It's called a cortisol steal. So cortisol, when you're under stress, you're stealing all of those hormones because it doesn't have enough substrate to make those good hormones. That's why cortisol, if you have too much cortisol, it'll age you.
So let me ask you, in times like that, what we're living through now, is that what you're seeing most with people with situations that their cortisol levels are high?
I see two types. One, the cortisol level is high, and that's because they're under stress. And that means that their adrenals actually are resilient, and it can do what it's supposed to do. When you're under stress, it's supposed to go up. It's supposed to help you deal with it and help you deal with stress. Well, what ends up happening is as you age, and if you have way too much, for instance, if you had a lot of trauma as a child and your whole life has been really struggle, you're not making enough money, you have to pay for your own college, you're having double shifts, you're working at night shifts, not the day shift, all of these stresses, you've gone through a divorce, you lose a parent. There's a lot of things that we go through as we're getting older. When you've had any of these kind of stressors, you are so burnt out, you don't even make enough cortisol. That's the other side. Too much cortisol is going to be a problem, and not enough can be a problem. So any dysregulation, instead of it being that natural, normal rhythm where you have the high first and then the low, then if you don't have that and you have all these, and it's all over cortisol can be all over the place, that's when you start to suffer. Too much cortisol and all that, you're going to get all those symptoms that I talked about. Not enough cortisol, strangely enough, that also gives you very similar symptoms.
Yeah.
When you don't have enough cortisol, you don't have energy. You cannot focus. You get very depressed.
Right.
You actually, people who don't have enough cortisol, you don't have the energy to get up. So you're more sedentary. You gain weight and lose muscle. You get
what could be some of the things that we could do at home, like to kind of do an inventory, an assessment of where we are, because we don't want everybody running to the doctor and doing that. Like there's some things that we can assess ourselves and then kind of figure out what shifts we need to make nutritionally, sleep, movement, meditation, and
Mm.
see. And then what it like the other part of the question would be, and like when we make those changes, how long does it take before we would start seeing a shift in that? So that this way we could say, all right, that's exactly what it was. I made these changes, and then I get back the biofeedback loop saying it's working because now you're sleeping better, you're less irritable, you're less brain fog. So, what assessment could we do to see where we are in the high or the low, and what changes might we make to?
Got it. So online, there are cortisol testing that you can actually order yourself.
Mhm.
And literally, it's called a stress test, adrenal stress test. I do it in my practice, but I've seen it online. You can order them. It's a salivary test. Now, I use more than salivary. I do salivary plus urine because I want to combine and look at my adrenaline. I want to look at my brain, the brain chemistry, and I combine it together. So I have a little bit more extensive testing, but you can get a salivary cortisol test online. I actually have a picture of it so you can see what it looks like. Usually it looks something like this. And see the green area? See, that's the high in the morning, and then it goes down at night. But these are, if you look at this sample, this person, it's all high. Notice how it's all high. That's a high cortisol person. That's someone. So if you got this and you can get, again, it's very easy. You do a saliva, you do 4 times during the day, 4 samples, you send it away, and they give you this kind of a report, and you'll get to figure out, wow, I'm way over jacked up here, So, and then all the symptoms that I talked to you about, oh, I can't sleep very well at night. I'm anxious all the time. Some of my patients actually feel like they buzz. They're literally their skin on their body and their physicality, their nervous system, it's buzzing, where you don't feel calm. And sometimes you're doing fine, you're making your food and you're cooking, and all of a sudden you get this surge of anxiety. And then nothing was, you haven't changed anything, you're just cooking away. But that is a sign of you got cortisol dysregulation. So those are the things that you want to do. Here's another one. Remember, you were saying that you had a double hump. This is a person that is on the lower end in the morning. It should be higher, but it's lower and goes up, down, and then up again at night. See, that's what you don't want to. So now you know what? I don't get enough. That's why in the morning I'm crawling out of bed. And I've got to have a cup of coffee in the morning. Now, I don't drink any caffeinated products, and it's been a long time, probably since like 30 years. And the reason is caffeine was giving me fake energy. You know what I mean by fake energy, Lavinia? And it was making me actually not being able to sleep at night because I was having that fake energy and my nervous system was way too wound up tightly. So for me, having just, if you get good sleep, I'm going to go over all this, but there are so many things that you can do to see that we're going to have to change and make sure that you got that high in the morning, low at night. So what are the things that we can do? The best thing I say would be you've got to regulate your sleep and alert state cycle. So we sleep at a certain amount of hours, and it's got to be at night. It's got to be because there is what you call a circadian rhythm. There's an actual clock, 24-hour clock in our body. Remember I said it's high in the morning, cortisol in the morning, low at night. That's a rhythm. So what you want to do is you want to mimic that. So what makes you wake up in the morning? Sunlight. We've got to work. Our skin, our eyes, our brain, our nervous system is all photosensitive. Photosensitive means we actually have little receptors that can recognize sunlight. It also can recognize there's no light. Wow. So when the moon comes out and the sun goes down, I should say the sun goes down and it gets dark at night, that's when you need darkness at night. Don't be, on your Facebook and doing all this thing and having all this bright light on you at nighttime, because that's going to throw your cortisol off. It'll quickly go up because your brain and your nervous system thinks, oh, it's still daylight, right?
So I found that we had to even make our room Like
Yes.
for us to really get really deep, peaceful sleep. I mean, our room is literally blacked out. Even little, I have this black tape that I put on every, like wherever there could be
Be
like,
like,
little light that comes off of the different machines, because just that was enough to keep my brain just awake on some level.
that's
I mean, the truth of it is, I even travel now that I don't travel so much anymore. But when I was traveling, in my suitcase is always a big roll of black tape. Because as soon as I walk into a hotel room, I'm
Hmm.
literally blacking out. Even I'm taping, like if the curtains don't close all the way, or even on top, if a little bit of light comes in on the top, I'm literally like taping, um, towels up there, because I just found for me, I needed pitch black to get that level of sleep. And I have seen over the years the importance of that. Like sleep is,
The right thing. You're absolutely doing the right thing, Lavinia, because you are completely eliminating any stimulus so that your brain and your nervous system and your full body gets that rest so that you can produce good hormones again. That rest during your sleep, at least 7.5 to 8 hours a night, you want deep sleep. Plus, you don't want it interrupted. Some people, when you get interrupted sleep, it's actually your cortisol spikes up. And I want you to know that that happens when your blood sugar dives down. When some people, they don't eat enough. All right. For instance, you might say some individuals, oh, I stopped eating at 6 o'clock p.m. You know what I mean? Well, then until 6 until the next day, I understand. Some people do really well that way because their digestion gets better. Other people, though, some people get the blood sugar just dives. It gets really too low in the middle of the night. And when it gets too low, remember I said cortisol raises your blood sugar?
yeah.
Your cortisol will, your body recognizes that the blood sugar is too low and it kicks right in. And then you wake up and you're like major alert.
I believe that because I do the intermittent fasting and I wait 16 hours. And I found that I get a better night's sleep when I finish eating at like 8:30 than when I would finish at 6:30, because of that, I would wake up. And I think maybe, like you said, my
Absolutely.
sugar
It's,
level got
think
too.
about it. So if you stopped at 6 and you go to bed at 11, you've got 5 hours. Some people even go later with no food in their body. And the blood sugar is going to go up and down. You're going to get lower and lower, of course. And then some individuals are resilient enough for them to use their fat for an energy source.
Okay, I need to learn how to do that. That's going to be the next time we have Susanne Bennett on. It's going to be how we turn our fat into an energy source.
Absolutely. Well, let me tell you, that has everything to do with mitochondria health.
The
Mitochondria,
next one's going to be mitochondria health.
yes,
And
exactly.
you know what? I keep on getting from people the COVID-19 pounds, the COVID-19 pounds. So we're going to be able to really make a lot of good energy.
Absolutely. You got it. So with that being said, the light is super important. Get your rhythm down. And with the rhythm, you need to eat regularly. If you skip meals, and I know that some people can go, intermittent fasting, you go twice a day, you eat. Some people can deal with that. Other people cannot. And some people can do well skipping a breakfast. Other people will not. You got to know your body. And you use that, like you just said, Lavinia. If I eat later in the evening, I do better. I suggest you do eat later, because you need the sleep. So then what you do is you make sure you don't skip meals, because we need good food and all the healthy and low inflammatory foods. Everyone knows about that. I'm sure you had plenty of people that here on your
No,
videos.
but I think we should definitely put a list on of the foods that you recommend
Sure.
for the
Low inflammatory, of course, is low sugars, no caffeine, low caffeine, of course. Caffeine can jack you up too much and affect your cortisol level and your adrenals. Alcohol. there's a lot of us since COVID, Lavinia, a lot of people are drinking more alcohol. Alcohol, everyone thinks that alcohol sedates you and you get tired, but that's not true. Alcohol does that because it increases histamine in your body, and histamine makes you tired. But alcohol affects the same receptors that cocaine is affected in your brain. It gets you very, very agitated and high. The dopamine receptors are affected. So that's part of the reason why alcohol is addictive, because people want that addictive, they want that feeling. They feel good, they feel alert, they feel like they can do things, and they can start being themselves or whatever, you know what I mean? So alcohol is one of those foods that I would suggest not to drink, especially in the evening, because it will throw your hormones off, cholesterol off, your cortisol off, and your ability to sleep. I really suggest people to exercise more. Exercise is known to reduce cortisol. So if you're really jacked up and you're anxious a lot and you've got high cortisol, exercise. And very interestingly, not in the morning, Lavinia, exercise in the afternoon. That reduces your adrenaline goes down, and it calms your adrenals down, and it will reduce your cortisol. And remember that clock rhythm, the clock, I talked about the circadian clock. Your body actually has more power and resilience and can move faster at about 2 until like 5 o'clock. Wow. Interesting, isn't it? That's part of the clock. So it's important that you do exercise at the right time. So if you exercise early morning, if you are someone who had excess cortisol, too much, then I would say you would do better exercising in the morning, because your cortisol will go down to a normal level, right? That's part of the reason why you want to get it tested, and you want to see, what are your numbers? What are your real numbers here? And then if you go ahead and we talked about exercising at the right time, I would say finding a hobby. I'm someone that believes in music and playing music, guitar, whatever you like. I think that if you like to garden, play with your dog, I mean, hobbies, especially now during COVID times, and we're stuck at home more, you got to learn more to do more things. I was actually thinking about, I don't know if you know what macrame is and stuff. When I was young, we used to do leather work. Do you remember making a belt? And I mean, like, I love that kind of scrappy stuff. Well, I'm thinking about going into that now, because I need a little bit extra things to just take my mind off, right? Because that's what we need to do. Remember, trauma and our perceptions affect our cortisol level. We can just all of a sudden be sitting there doing our thing, and we start thinking about a bad event that happened. Well, your cortisol is going to spike right up. You get anxiety, you get crushing chest tension, you can't breathe as well, you get sweaty palms. Well, that's adrenaline, cortisol hitting you quickly. So a lot of the reasons, the things that you want to do is just to calm your nervous system down, calm the way you perceive things. I don't watch TV. I know right now is a real horrid time of the politics, and I don't even watch. I don't even know what's going on. I don't want to know, only because all it does, I think, is just brings things up, including knowing about how many people are dying because of COVID, and you know, all that's going on. It's very depressing.
Yeah, for sure.
It really is. I just know in my community what I need to do so that I can be healthier and take care of people, see my patients, take care of my home, my family, and everything. That's my own tribe, right? That's what I'm focused on. And I really think if you can manage your time so that you're not spending it away with everyone, you don't have to. Start conserving. And that's what adrenals are about. Being resilient, you've got to conserve so that the next time you need the energy, you have it. You've got that cortisol ready to be outputted. Adrenaline's going to be there for you. We need that at times when we are under a high amount of stress. Don't absorb all of the other excess junk that we don't need. It doesn't serve us ever. And all it does is it gets our hormones affected, our adrenal affected. And then, of course, having said that we want to laugh more, and breathing is both. We did a breath work earlier, that both of them, laughing and breathing, both relaxes you. And it calms you down, and it boosts your parasympathetic nervous system, so everything calms down, including the way our brain affects our adrenal glands. So those are the things that I think we can do. Now there's supplements. I mean, I can talk about supplements if you want.
Yeah, I think, people need to know a couple supplements that they could take to make a difference.
There's no doubt, you've heard of stress tabs. They're B vitamins. Stress tabs are, you'll see it when you go to the health food store. It'll say stress B vitamins, stress tabs, stress supplements. It's all, and B vitamins are essential. I said earlier a little bit about mitochondria. Well, B vitamins support the mitochondria. And if you have mitochondria in your adrenal glands, it has the energy to make cortisol. It has the energy to make DHEA and the pregnenolone and all the good, yummy hormones that comes from your adrenal glands, so that you have power. We need power, right? So we do want B vitamins. Vitamin C, super important for adrenal glands. Vitamin C, very, very high levels of vitamin C. In fact, out of all of the tissue in our body, adrenal glands have the highest level of vitamin C. So it's super important.
Say vitamin C, like, should people be taking 1,000 milligrams, 2,000?
I'm someone that recommend higher levels than the RDA.
I know.
You know, the recommended daily allowance is super low. And maybe that was for someone who lived in olden times and they barely did it. I'm going to tell you, right now, we all need extra vitamin C. So vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin. What that means is that you pee it out. You take it within minutes, and once it goes into your body, it goes through your kidneys, and you're going to pee a little bit out all throughout the day. So do eat it throughout the day. I usually do 500 milligrams breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Right.
So that's me. Vitamin C has other properties. And one is it makes you protein, meaning like muscle, skin, hair, nails. Everything gets yummy and tight and youthful when you have vitamin C. That's why in some of the skincare products, it has vitamin C in it. You've probably seen vitamin C in skincare products. So that's because it really helps with integrity of tissue. So I take vitamin C, vitamin B. I also like utilize.
Are you taking, because I know everybody's getting B12 shots.
I love B12. You can do B12 shots.
Are you doing like a combination of all the Bs, like a B complex?
Yes. Here, I just have my supplements. I have my supplements in a bowl. This is a complex. This is a complex, and it has all the Bs in it together. And some Bs supplements out there are really low, not enough. It's like 100% only. I take it up a little higher. That's me. And that's because the way I run, you can tell I've got a good energy. I see patients all day long on the phone, and sure enough, I need the energy. So I take it a little bit more. Everyone's got to take a look and see how well they can manage it. Now, there is a test by SpectraCell to see if you've got plenty of Bs in your body, because SpectraCell looks at the inside, intracell. Because, when you do a B vitamin shot, let's say, and you go ask your doctor to check your B12, it'll really sky high, but that's in your blood, that's in your serum, it's not in your cell. SpectraCell goes intracellular and reads out all the different Bs, and then you'll know, oh, it's going in and I have plenty. I use a B12 sublingual, under the tongue. Sublingual means under the tongue. Most people I recommend under the tongue, even though in this B vitamin, I have B12 in here. I'm taking it and swallowing it in my stomach. Most people in the stomach, we don't have the ability to absorb it. So we use a sublingual B12.
Just B12 you can't absorb.
Yes, most people absorbs everything else. It's harder to absorb B12 because there's a little ingredient called intrinsic factor in the stomach. And a lot of people don't make enough of that. And so you have trouble absorbing B12.
Also, that product, you shouldn't take it after a certain time, right?
Very good point. So that's why in the B vitamins, I usually do it at the front end of the day. Okay. Remember, it helps you with stress. It helps you with cortisol resilience. And that's when you want to be high in the morning. I don't take Bs ever at night.
Right.
The
Okay.
only time I might take B vitamins is if I'm taking a formula to help me sleep, because there's certain to make melatonin. Now, we talked about why it's important to be dark. Darkness helps our brain, pineal gland, spew out and excrete melatonin. As soon as there's light, it shuts down the pineal gland. The only way you get melatonin, which is the hormone, the sleep hormone, is when it's blacked out. Just like you said, how you handle your night, you black it out. I even wear an eye mask, right? Black it out. And to make melatonin, melatonin comes from serotonin. So people who've got high anxiety usually have lower serotonin levels. People who are depressed have lower serotonin levels. And that's the reason why your sleep, a lot of people who've got depression and anxiety do not sleep well.
So
Because you cannot make melatonin.
you recommend a little bit of melatonin?
I do like melatonin. I take what's called sleep benefits, but there's melatonin in here. And then there's supplements to help calm my nervous system down. And there's GABA, which is an amino acid for our brain. And it's the #1 inhibitor for our nervous system. So it relaxes me. And if you had anxiety during the day, you can take GABA and that calms you down. There's L-theanine, which is an extract from green tea. It's a green tea extract, L-theanine. You can take that separately if you want. But if it's in your sleeping formula, then you can relax also. And that's part of
I remember hearing, Susanne, that you have to be really careful about how much melatonin you take, because if you take too much, you can actually have a reverse and you can stay awake. So just talk a little bit about that, because I hear sometimes people say, I take melatonin, but then it didn't work, so I took more. And I'm like, oh, I don't think you should be taking more. So
melatonin you can find supplement-wise from like 0.1, 0.3, 1 milligram, very, very, very low dose, 2 milligrams, 3 milligrams as such. Some individuals, depending on their sensitivity and their nervous system, I recommend always to start low, right. 0.5 to 1 milligram a night. Do it in the evening, obviously before you go to bed. And then see if you're good and you find that you're sleeping well, no problem. Then you just stick to that. Don't go any higher. Some of my patients need 5 milligrams. And it's just because their nervous system and their body doesn't make enough. Remember, we make our own melatonin.
Yeah.
Make our own. And that's one gland that doesn't have a negative feedback. What that means is that if you take melatonin, it doesn't shut off your own ability to make it. So even if you take it, you're going to make your own. But the substrate is what we need. The substrate, what does that mean? Serotonin is what we need to make melatonin. But what makes serotonin? Tryptophan.
Right.
Tryptophan is an amino acid, and I usually recommend people who can't sleep well, bananas, oatmeal, gluten-free oats, of course, and banana, oatmeal, and turkey. Good levels, and eat that throughout the day. Now, I don't recommend you to eat every day. Just mix it up. One day you're gonna have a banana. I'm just telling you, you can make more serotonin. And if you've got that serotonin, you can make more melatonin. So it's important that we have the substrate. Now, what else? Amino acids. I really recommend amino acids to help you with your blood sugar level, which will help your cortisol as well, and help you with making because there's tryptophan in amino acids, helping you make serotonin and melatonin. People say all the time, oh my God, I'm sleeping now. My mood is so happy. I'm so happy because you're sleeping. Part of it is because you have more serotonin to make more melatonin.
So I know you upped my amino acids. I think the last 2 months, and I have to tell you, like, my muscles, like, even like all of a sudden people like are saying to me, dang girl, you've got biceps, you have triceps. And it's not like my workout has changed drastically or anything, but I think it was adding that I take 4 in the morning. I was taking 4 in the morning and then 4 before I went to bed at night. And then you had me add one more.
That's right. You're doing 4 3 times a day.
Exactly. And that, just that extra bit, like, I mean, it's made such a huge difference.
Absolutely. You know why? Again, the one we take is super 8 aminos. These amino acids are the building blocks for protein and stabilizing your blood sugar, giving it the substrate to make your brain chemicals, the neurotransmitters all come from amino acid therapy or amino acids. So if you give it the substrates, then you're going to be able to sleep better, build more muscle, your skin tightens up, because everything is made from amino acids, tissue-wise. Bone health, wow. The one thing that I know a big difference in bone and strengthening your bone, and we've got major osteoporosis in this country. Did you know that too much cortisol causes osteoporosis?
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes, too much cortisol in your body will deplete and suck out that bone and literally create more osteoporosis. So that's part of the reason why you've got to get your cortisol stabilized. And when you do amino acids, it's one of those ways where you start to feel so good. Your energy will go up, your brain get sharper, you feel strong, and you will lose weight. I don't know if you notice, but your skin, your thickness of your skin gets leaner. You don't have as much, how do I say, adipose tissue, you know, surface
Is that
one.
a nice word for fat? No.
Yes. So, you know, we use that term, the 3-letter dreaded word a lot. So
Don't use that word. I don't think it's politically correct anymore to use the word fat.
I know. So but that's true. You get leaner, and that's why, Levin, people are seeing your muscles. It's not, I mean, yes, you're probably getting a little bit bigger, possibly. I don't know. You know, the way you always check is by doing a body composition test. You can get that done, body comp test, to see what your percentages of your muscle mass is and your percentage of fat layer. But if you're seeing it more, that means you're building more. And it's not like you're exercising more.
I'm telling you, I mean, my exercise during COVID has stayed incredibly consistent, probably better than ever. Because I have the time, where before I'm running out to meetings and meeting people, and of course the you know, just the traffic and so forth. But you know, Susanne, we're almost done, and this is so much great information. I promise you people, we're going to have all this information on the laviniaerico.com website. But I have one more thing I want to ask you, because you talked about alcohol, and I found though, and I think you were the one that gave me this little concoction. I don't obviously drink alcohol, really. I mean, if I have one glass of wine a month, that's a lot for me. But I remember you gave me 5-HTP. And sometimes I'll do that if I feel like I just need something to relax me. And really, like one of those, and I feel like I've had a glass of wine.
And this 5-HTP, Lavinia, remember I said about tryptophan?
Yeah.
And you can get it from the foods that I mentioned, the oatmeal, the banana, and as well as turkey. Well, 5-HTP is one step closer to serotonin. And so tryptophan becomes 5-HTP.
Oh.
And that is the precursor to serotonin. And what is serotonin? But is the peaceful brain chemical. It
So
makes
say that if people didn't want to have a drink, but they needed a little something to kind of like relax a little bit at 6 o'clock or whatever, that they could have 1 or 2 5-HTPs, and that would.
Yes. That in combination with GABA, remember I said GABA a little early, that's another amino acid, GABA, aminobutyric acid, GABA. If you do that combination, you're like, I'm you know, relaxed. I like GABA. I take high levels of GABA because I naturally, genetically, this is my body, because I checked my 23andMe and I've looked at my genetics, and I make too much, or I shouldn't say I make too much. I don't make enough GABA in my own body. And that's because my glutamate is too high, and glutamate turns into GABA, but I don't have that enzyme to make it happen. So genetically, that's just my makeup. That's my nature. And that might be part of the reason why I'm energized more than the average person. So what I like to do is I like GABA. I like taking GABA, and that calms me down. You know, I took GABA here today so that you and I are talking and I'm not way over jacked up, you know, because I have a tendency, that's just because it's my nature. It's my nature to be more energized, and my brain works very, very fast. So GABA calms my brain down. So yes, you can definitely take 5-HTP. You can take GABA. And then, of course, changing your environment at nighttime. Cut off all of your, you know, light and your iPads and iPhones and all that stuff. Relax.
And what about just like one or two foods that you could take at night? That, I guess, a little turkey, but I mean, that's
Sure.
right. We talked about that last time. I thought, like, there is no way I'm eating turkey at 10
That's
o'clock.
right.
But
You don't have to do it every night, but I will tell you. Remember, you mentioned that eating a little bit later helped for
yeah,
you.
that helps for me
Yeah.
for sure.
The thing that people don't understand is for you to make, remember the 5-HTP and tryptophan we talked about, for that to go into the brain, to the pineal gland, to help support the serotonin and make melatonin,
Yeah.
you need actually some carbohydrates.
Oh. So
And I
what,
don't mean
what's
sugar.
a good carbohydrate that won't convert into sugar at that point?
Well, carbohydrates that are slow digesting. I love oatmeal. I know that's a weird thing to eat at night. Remember one time I talked about beans?
To make an oatmeal cookie?
Nah,
I'm gonna figure out how to make a
How to
healthy oatmeal cookie.
but let's say quinoa, brown rice, seeds, you know, some carbs.
Mhm.
Excuse me, hummus, having some hummus with crackers, you know, a little bit in bed. Before, I don't mean close to bedtime, but definitely closer, like 7, 8, like a snack. Have a little snack. But if you can't have that snack for whatever reason, then have your dinner with some carbs. Not bready stuff, but stuff that has more
A
starch.
little quinoa or brown rice.
Potato, quinoa, sweet potato, butternut squash soup, right? Soup. What else? God, nowadays there's all kinds of stuff that are made with brown rice and cassava and all kinds of, you know. So you can find those that are gluten free. I don't like gluten because gluten actually excites your brain and it keeps you up at night. So you want to definitely have those. And by the way, there's a trick, just to let you know.
Now we need another trick.
One trick about carbs, if you let's say have rice and potato, did you know if you pop it into the refrigerator overnight and then you make it for whatever it is the next day, let's say you make fried rice for your family or you make potato salad, did you know that it cuts down the sugar level by 50%?
Okay, wait a minute. So you make the rice.
Hot rice.
So you make the rice, you put it in a bowl, you
Put it in a glass container,
and right,
put it in the fridge
and then reheat it.
the next day.
And it takes a lot of, okay, that's amazing to know.
That's a very, very, and what happens is it's interesting, the cold, the making it cold, the change in temperature converts it into what's called resistant starch.
Wow.
So it's slower in its digestion.
Oh, that's like the same way that we go into an ice bath.
Interestingly enough.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Just so you know, I'm putting in, my husband just ordered it 2 days ago.
What?
I'm finally breaking down and I'm putting outside next to the infrared sauna an ice, like a cold plunge. Because I'm like, you know what? I keep talking about this. I keep talking about this. The more research I do about longevity and health and the body is this really doing a freezing cold plunge. So that is my Christmas gift, my birthday gift to myself is that ice plunge.
I think that is fantastic because there's no doubt doing that, you are creating more adaptability of your body. Absolutely. You know, so helping your blood flow to the brain, your energy level, your mitochondria, doing that whole thing can also help reboot your ability to make more mitochondria in your body. It's amazing. So is it one of those big white ones and you're just gonna
No, I'll show it to you. We'll
Wait,
do a video of it for the community when I finally get it.
that sounds-
Susanne, it's time. Everyone's texting me. I could just go for hours with you. I always get so inspired by listening to you, the knowledge that you have, the way you connect the dots, and just your energy, your vitality, how much energy you have, and the information is always by far top. So thank you so much for taking time with us today. So appreciate it. Everybody have an amazing week. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Lavinia. Love you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.